Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for joining me today as I talk about building data literacy to drive data experiences. I'm Zara, the Head of Data Culture and Transformation Programs within our Customer Success Department here at Google Cloud. And my career has predominantly centered around helping organizations, global organizations, navigate those trials and tribulations that inevitably crop up when going through transformation programs. I'll quickly touch on the definition of data culture, as I'll refer to it throughout the presentation, and it's still a concept that I find the most misunderstood or misused. It's not a badge of honor. It's not something that, you're awarded. Culture is something that grows over time. It's cultivated and it's nurtured, much like those houseplants that entered our homes during lockdown. A company's culture is created over time, and there are parts that we will, consciously preserve. And there are parts that will change and adapt and morph organically or, again, consciously. It's not defined by how quickly your company hires a CDO or a CIO, or how quickly a company adopts, processes or technology. However, it will be an indicator of how a process or a tool or technology is adopted if there were no external forces at play. This is likely a familiar framework to you all. The more intertwined these elements are, and the more they're informed by one another, then the stronger the foundation to drive cultural change. I won't spend too much time on this, but just bear with me, because this is what we want to see, this is what we want to work with. But let's take a look at what, in my experience, is a far more common model when I go into organizations to help consult on, their stalling transformation journey, particularly when it's one to create and foster a data-driven organization. Silos. Decisions are made in silos, those operational choices, hiring choices, tool choices. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that one person or one very small team should be dictating all of those choices for a global organization, or what processes need to be implemented or canned. But we do need to start recognizing that there is a wider impact on all of those choices and all of those decisions, particularly when organizational change is a focus. And even more so when the goal is to be a truly data-centric organization. So when we talk about data experiences and instilling a data-driven culture, we naturally focus on the specific data tools. So I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but we talk about pipelines and we talk about infrastructure, but we don't talk about people, or at least it's a very last thought when, the people aren't doing what we need them to do. Again, culture is organization-wide. It's not just a couple of teams wide. That's microclimate. So we're not going to get into that. But if the data platform you have chosen, if it doesn't facilitate the requirement to, evolve and have different variations of data experiences based on governed, trustworthy, secure data that is relevant to the audience, then it's not going to be the right tool to carry you through this journey. Think about how silos can be broken down. How can cross-functional collaboration be encouraged if you don't have the ability to integrate those data flows or data tools even into someone's everyday workflow? It's a common misconception that data platforms and tools are going to be the silver bullets to creating and fostering this data-driven culture. But what if the tool you have doesn't allow for, a lower barrier to entry, particularly for those with absolutely no data literacy skills whatsoever? This is really common when I go into, say, very established businesses that have legacy tools that were purely built to serve the very, very highly data literate individuals in a very small pocket of the business. It was never, they were never designed to facilitate business users. Your technology choices and processes, they need to align with the data-driven culture that you're striving for. They are big, expensive choices when it comes to technology, and it's not until we start really talking about org-wide data literacy and creating a data culture that the pain of those choices bubble up. A really common inhibitor of becoming more data-driven is poor collaboration tools, completely outside of the remit of your data team and the choices that they need to make, but very impactful if it doesn't align. So one way that you can use technology as a lever in driving your organization forward, not a silver bullet, just a lever, is to create data experiences. You have to work with your end users to determine what that experience needs to look like for them. Never just assume. They don't need to know what is under the hood. They just need to know that they have access to secure, governed, trustworthy data. The goal with data experiences is to make using data the default option for everybody. And you can do that through embeds, integrations, applications. And remember, it's not just within data tools, it's within any of those tools across your ecosystem that are available for your users. What you want to do is create data experiences that will be the first step to encourage everybody to be making actionable insights or having actionable insights. You've got to create experiences that are in line with their data literacy levels. So keep in mind that as those data literacy levels increase, so will the requirement of the data experiences. Seeing and using data every day is what can help enable everyone to build skills in reading, understanding, and communicating through the use of data, particularly when it means something to them. But how can you even begin to understand what those user requirements are and what they will need from data if they don't even have, the bare minimum of data literacy skill? When you learn a new language, you start with the basics. You learn certain words, certain phrases, and then you build up to reading and understanding and communicating in that language. That's all data literacy is. Just the language is data and not, French. At all data literacy levels, there can and should be the application of critical thought. The fastest way to learn a new language is to just fully immerse yourself in that culture. So for a company that already has, those norms and values that we breezed across, collaborative, innovative, very secure culture that allows people to take risks, that will open conversations that stem from data. You want everyone in your business to be speaking the same language, albeit at varying levels. So just think of the importance of context in everyday language. Imagine walking into a conversation and joining in with your take on your favorite brand of baked beans. If you didn't know I was English, you do now. But then actually, the conversation stops. You might feel a bit silly. There might be some sniggering. And someone pipes up and says, no, we were talking about coffee beans. Very different conversations, but when you walk in and you have no idea what the context is, that's what happens. Now imagine that at a business level. That's where, we really want to start working on understanding those shared definitions. To help crystallize the impact of data literacy on an organization, let's just layer in the data literacy levels with organization-wide analytical capability. The more effective, the more efficient, the more accurate, and the more innovative your analyses are, the more business value an organization will drive. So on the bottom left, we have our tactical level of analytics. It's your kind of descriptive, your observational stuff. And that's where you're looking at reports and your dashboards and making decisions there. So it's the what are we seeing? And for those with little to no data literacy at all, they might make some assumptions as to the why and make a decision off the back of that assumption, or, rely on experience, things like that. Then we move up to the diagnostic level. It's the why is this happening? And this is where data literacy truly comes into play. So already at this level, individuals need to understand some of those basic concepts. Things like your causation and correlation, and there are so many fun, good examples of that you can leverage. But people need to feel empowered, and they need to have the ability to explore further and to analyze the data and find that insight that will truly make an impact, on their next decision. They have to be able to weigh up the data with gut feel. It's not about just closing down a conversation just on the data. And this is where creating and fostering a data-driven culture and investing in those data literacy programs becomes the key to not only unlocking the value of your data, but also unlocking the full value of any tools and any technologies that you have in your ecosystem. And then the top right, the part that we all love to talk about, the AI and the ML. It's the stuff that everyone loves to talk about. We love focusing on, how much we're spending or the volumes of data that we're processing. It's no longer about who has the nicest sports car. It's incredibly important to understand that the small pocket of individuals you have in the business who can actually do something at that level are unable to, because they are spending time serving the rest of the business's analytical requirements. If no one else in the organization is able to do even that tactical level of analysis, then someone has to help them do that. We need to understand that organizations spend a lot of time and effort on those last two levels towards the top right, which they absolutely should. But they tend to be in, like I say, those very small pockets managed by a relatively small group of people. The reality seems to be that the majority of organizations are actually operating at the tactical level. If we're looking at an organization as a whole and saying that you're only as mature or only as capable as your least mature or least capable department, then that's kind of how we can apply that label. But what about those parts of the organization that don't even have access to data? They can't even be incorporated into that equation. The pitfall here, like I've already said, is that in order to drive any value from data, the majority of the organization relies on such a small group of people to serve them, sometimes that tactical analysis, but even the strategic analysis. And it is taking them away from being able to do that transformational analytics. That's the game-changing stuff. That's the stuff that will take your business to the next level. Just think of the value your organization can drive when you transition from only a small subset of the organization making strategic or transformational data-driven decisions to even 10%, 20%. The application of diverse, critical thinking can change the shape of a business. You want people to have different perspectives. You want them to challenge one another to truly make sure you're getting the most rounded view. With these key takeaways, bear in mind that cultural change is the hardest thing you can do in an organization. It's essentially a company's DNA. So rather than thinking of it as, two different states, just consider that notion of becoming a more data-driven culture or being more data-driven rather than, the solid be a data-driven culture, or we are a data-driven culture. And you need to get comfortable with this idea that it's a continuous journey. All cultures evolve, and what we aspire to be today may not be what we aspire to be tomorrow, but it will be a rewarding journey, particularly when we're talking about two of the most valuable things in your organisation, and that's data and your people. Thank you.